Unit 5 is all about inequalities. And so this first section in the unit is going to be hopefully a review for most of you. So our standard is one of our big 8th grade standards. It's in the algebra and functions. Then it's about being able to solve linear equations and inequalities that have rational numbers. Rational number coefficients. So being able to solve linear equalities that have fractions, decimals, or integers. Also those that require the distributive property combining like terms, and then representing and solving real-world problems using linear equalities in one variable. So the vocabulary term for this section is an inequality, and an inequality is a mathematical sentence that compares quantities that are not equal. And it will contain either the less than symbol, the greater than symbol, the less than or equal to symbol, or the less than, or the greater than or equal to symbol. And let's label these so that we know what they all are. So this is less than. Second one is greater than. And then when the line's underneath, it means less than or equal to. And then the last one is greater than or equal to. I'd also like you to write this table down in your notes, the inequality table. So this is looking at the 4 different symbols and recognizing that there are words that go with each symbol. We're going to do a lot with real-world type problems or writing sentences into inequalities. So the less than inequality uses the words is less than, that's how we say it. Or also you might see is fewer than. So when you see is fewer than, we also are talking about the less than symbol. For the greater than symbol, it's is greater than, is more than, and exceeds. Those are all words that indicate we're talking about the greater than symbol. For less than or equal to, again, less than or equal to, is no more than, or is at most. And those are the two that are a little bit confusing because you see the word more or most, and students often want to make it the greater than symbol. But if something is no more than, let's say, 10, if something's no more than 10, that means it can't go over 10, so it has to be less than 10. And that's kind of how I rationalize it. Then the final symbol, the is greater than or equal to symbol, again, is greater than or equal to, is no less than, or is at least. And again, it gets a little confusing because you see the words less or least, but you're using the greater than symbol. So again, if something is at least 10, then it means the smallest it can be is 10, but it can also be bigger than 10. So that's where that's how that comes into play. So let's write an inequality for each sentence. It means we're going to need a variable, a symbol, and then the number. So a DVD costs more than $15. So I'm going to use X to represent the cost of the DVD. So that's X. More than is the greater than symbol, and then 15 for the dollars. So the DVD more than $15. It means it can be anything greater than 15. We have a dog weighs less than 50 pounds. So the dog's weight, less than is the less than symbol, excuse me, and 50 pounds. So the dog can weigh anything less than 50 pounds. The height requirement is greater than or equal to 40 inches. So the height requirement is going to be our variable, and when we see greater than or equal to, it's this symbol, and then 40 inches. So this could be talking about maybe an amusement park ride where you have to be taller than 40 inches to ride the ride. The next two examples we've seen before on I-step testing, so we want to make sure that you know how to answer this type of question. So it says, for a given value, state whether the inequality is true or false. So number 4 says 2t plus 8 is greater than 7, and we're going to check whether or not this is true if t is negative 1. So what you're going to do is rewrite the inequality, substituting in the negative 1 for t, and then we're going to simplify the left-hand side to see if this is true or not. So 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 plus 8, and we're checking if this is greater than 7. Negative 2 plus 8 is 6. 6 is not greater than 7, so we would write false. So the inequality is false for this given value. If you'd like to pause the video and try number 5 on your own, again, we're substituting in the given value for the variable. So p is 40, so we're going to write 40 minus 42, 40 minus 42 is less than or equal to negative 2. So we're trying to determine, is this true or false, this statement. 40 minus 42 is negative 2, so we have negative 2 is less than or equal to negative 2. And this is where you have to really pay attention to this symbol. The line underneath indicates that the two things can be equal, the left and the right, and that is what's happening here. Negative 2 does equal negative 2, so this is true. Negative 2 is less than or equal to negative 2. Next, we're going to start graphing inequalities on number lines. So I want to make sure that you do get these directions into your notes. So first we have, the first step is that, just to remember that the further left your number is, the smaller its value. So on a number line, numbers go from left to right, increasing in value. To graph on a number line, we always want to make sure that our variable is on the left-hand side of the inequality. So once you have the inequality written, we want to make sure the variable is on the left. If it's not on the left, we will switch it to the left-hand side. This is so important. If we don't have it on the left, oftentimes we shade the wrong way. So there are two things you have to do on a line, on a number line, when you're graphing an inequality. The first thing you have to do is indicate the point or the value we're talking about, and that's either going to be with an opened dot or what I call a closed dot. And a closed dot will be colored in like this, and an open dot will be like that. So the closed dot is with the less than or equal to and the greater than or equal to. It means we're including the point. We use an open dot when we say just less than or greater than. It means we're not including the point. And then we shade in the appropriate direction, and I say to follow the arrow because the greater than and less than symbols look similar to an arrowhead. So again, make sure that these directions are in your notes. So first we're going to graph the inequality. A is greater than 6. We want to do first is plot 6 on the number line. And then I also want you plotting a number to the left that's less than 6 and a number to the right that's greater than 6. So we'll go 5 and 7. You don't have to pick 5 and 7. You can go a lot less than 6 or a lot greater than 6 on either side. That's your choice. So the first question is, do we have an open or a closed dot at 6? So we go back to the symbol. It was a greater than symbol. And when we go back here, greater than means it's an open dot. It's because 6 is not included. A is greater than 6. It's not actually 6. And now we want to shade to all the values that are greater than 6. So everything greater than 6 is to the right. And I just usually shade my line like that. Please do your shading actually on the line. Students in the past have done things like this. Don't shade that way. Don't do it like that. Shade right on the line. And also make sure it's obvious to me that your circle is open or closed. Remember, we're talking about all values that are greater than 6, so that's everything to the left or to the right of 6. If you look at the arrow, or if you look at the inequality symbol as an arrow, you can see that it's pointing to the right, and so we shade to the right. And again, that's only going to work when our variable's on the left. Number 7 is x is less than or equal to -1. So we're going to start by plotting -1 on the number line, and then we want a value smaller, -2, and a value bigger, 0. And so the first thing we want to do again is determine whether or not we're going to have an open or closed dot at -1. This inequality is read x is less than or equal to -1. Because you're saying or equal, we want to shade in the dot at -1 because we're actually including -1. And now we're going to shade to the left. We're talking about all the values less than or equal to -1. So everything to the left of -1 is going to be less. Again, the inequality has the variable on the left-hand side, and because the variable is on the left, you can follow the arrow, so it looks like it's pointing to the left. Number 8, we have y is greater than or equal to 5. If you'd like to pause the video here and try to graph this one on your own. So I'm going to put 5 on the number line. 4 is smaller and 6 is bigger. Again, you don't have to pick 4 and 6, but make sure that it is correct. Don't put a number smaller than 5 over here in this range on the right. So we have greater than or equal to. So because it's greater than or equal to, again, we're going to color in the dot. And this time our arrow is pointing to the right. We have our variable on the left, and we're pointing to the right. So those are all the values that are greater than or equal to 5. So remember, with inequalities, the reason why we write our solution with a number line is because we can't possibly list all the numbers greater than 5. So we use the number line to indicate we're talking about everything in the shaded region, and that number line does go on forever. So not only are we talking about 5.5, 6, 6.5, 6 3/4, but you're talking about 10, 100, a million and one, everything greater than 5. Excuse me, everything greater than or equal to 5. Now let's go the other way. Now I'm going to give you the graph, and I want you to write the inequality. So when you do this, you have to do two things. You have to determine which way the inequality symbol points, and then you have to determine if it's just less than greater than, or less than or equal to greater than or equal to. So the first thing I'm going to ask that you do is write the variable and write the number. This requires almost no thinking. Now we'll focus on the symbol. So we're shading to the left. So because we're shading to the left, we're talking about numbers that are less than -2, like -3, -4, -5. Those are all less than -2. Finally, we look here, we see that it is not shaded in. So because it's not shaded, we just want the less than symbol. We're not actually talking about -2, we're talking about everything less than -2. So x is less than -2 is the inequality for the graph. Here we have a graph that has shading to the right of 3 with a closed dot. So again, we're going to write a variable, we're going to write the number, and this time we notice that our shading is to the right. So we want to write our inequality pointing to the right. We're talking about numbers that are greater than 3, and because we actually have it shaded in, we're talking about numbers that are greater than or equal to 3. Again, the closed dot indicates the number 3 is part of the answer, So that's why we draw the line underneath. And once you've shown the video to me and I check off your notes, then I'll give you a copy of worksheet 5.1.